State House studio in Montgomery. I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. It was a busy day here as the Alabama legislature was back in the capital city meeting for the 14th legislative day of this 30-day session. We'll start in the House, where the general fund budget was on the floor. The House took up and unanimously passed the plan of just over $3 billion in spending for the state's non-education agencies. The total is $15 million more than what Governor Kay Ivey had originally requested. The House also approved a $201 million supplemental appropriations bill, which is $13 million higher than what Ivey had originally requested. The supplemental accounts for surplus revenue carried forward from the previous year's budget. House General Fund Chairman Rex Reynolds called the spending plan a strong budget for Alabama.
The governor sent a very strong budget bill over here. We did amend that and offer a substitute in committee, and that was just based on some increase in revenue that we were seeing. Obviously, from the time the governor transmitted the budget, we were able to see a couple more months of receipts and revenue. So we plussed that up about $28 million above what she had allocated, and really only about 4 line item changes to the governor's budget. So it's a good budget. We were fortunate to have additional revenue, and certainly proud of the members supporting us on that.
As I mentioned, this base budget that was amended in committee is $15 million more than Ivey's original budget, and there were some significant changes. Comparing the two versions, this House-passed budget has $1 million less for the electric vehicle grant program, but $2 million more for the airport development grant program. Both those are housed in ADECA. There is $325,000 more for the Alabama Forestry Commission, $1.76 million more for the Department of Public Health. Most of that is for workforce development schools to fill in-demand health jobs at Huntsville Hospital. There's $1.3 million more for tourism spread throughout the state, $2.5 million more for the Local Government Pistol Permit Revenue Loss Fund. This is the fund set up by the permitless carry legislation last year, and this latest budget funds it at $7.5 million total. Finally, the biggest plus up is for the Department of Mental Health, with a $4.45 million increase. That includes an additional $2 million for crisis centers, $2 million for community providers. We talked about that issue this past weekend, and $450,000 more for crisis intervention training. In the Senate, lawmakers passed legislation aimed at limiting the state from how aggressively it can suspend driver's licenses for non-moving violations, like unpaid traffic tickets or failure to appear. Senate Bill 154 passed unanimously and now goes to the House, where last year a similar bill died. State Senator Will Barfoot is confident this year will be different.
This bill would just simply say if you missed less than 6 payments that the court could not suspend your driver's license. More than 6, they could still suspend your license.
Is it restricted though?
So
like they can just go to work, or they can go?
Nope, just
they can go to anything.
The suspension or not.
Ball field.
Once they're suspended, then current law would provide for where or when or how they could use it. There's a hardship affidavit already in place that they could ask to be granted a hardship affidavit.
So it's not restricted at all. You can still do whatever.
You can still do whatever because your license hasn't been suspended under these 2 changes.
And I just wonder why there wasn't going to be any restriction, but I just trust you to have the best bill. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to count on you.
The Senate also passed legislation making it illegal to smoke or vape in a vehicle when a child under 14 is present. That was final passage for House Bill 3, meaning it now goes to the governor. State Representative Rolanda Hollis said the measure is meant to prevent childhood asthma and other respiratory illnesses by keeping children away from secondhand smoke.
This bill started 6 years ago when my husband and I was going out, and I jumped up in his truck, and he's a smoker, and I could not breathe. And I jumped out of the truck, and I was thinking, I could get out, I could jump out and say I'm not riding in the truck. But what about our kids? If it was a kid, they could not jump out the truck the same way I did. Just like we have to step outside this building and any other building to smoke. We're just saying when you get ready to smoke, step outside your car to smoke, especially when you got your babies inside that car.
Lawmakers on the left and right today responded to the recent resignation of Dr. Barbara Cooper, Secretary of Early Childhood Education, over the governor's objections to language in a teacher training manual. Governor Kay Ivey announced the cabinet shakeup on Friday, saying this manual contained, quote, woke concepts that were inappropriate. State Representative Wandalyn Gavan said Ivey was wrong to force Cooper out, while State Representative Ed Oliver defended the governor.
It's a really bad display of just how far we have not come in the state of Alabama. And especially under the circumstance, did it warrant whatever went on? Did it warrant her termination? Did it warrant her being forced to resign from that top position? But I bet her replacement will be a white female. I can guarantee you that. And I guarantee you it will be someone that they will say that will impose the level of, and I don't know you want to use the word impose, but that will make sure that whatever they do, they're implementing a process or program, that they're following that track of the critical race theory, not here in the state of Alabama. Not in our classrooms, not in our libraries, not in our pre-K program. And unfortunately, it was a sad day for the citizens of Alabama.
Well, I would say that it's a responsibility of the legislature, since public education is compulsory and we make you send your kids, then we want to make sure that all kids get what we would consider a good education. And that does not include proselytizing from the left or the right. In the bill that I am carrying, which is an anti-CRT bill, divisive concepts, it's designed to protect your kids, my kids, and everybody's kids from people that would like to politicize them and racialize them and try to make them think things that are not productive in school. We're looking for things that make people work together and not divide them.
This year marks 50 years in the Alabama legislature for State Senator Jabbo Wagoner, giving him legendary status amongst the State House crowd. His colleagues in the Senate honored him in a special presentation on the Senate floor earlier today.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate you and y'all so much. And y'all expect me to say something? Wow. This is getting too much, this resolution and then the party tomorrow night, but there's a reason I stayed here, okay? When you love the people you work with, you feel like you're in a position to accomplish some things for the people of the state of Alabama. Last year was my 49th year. I've never been a quitter. Why quit at 49 if you do it? Just do it one more year and you round the magic number of 50.
And we'll be right back with tonight's guests.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
Joining me next is State Representative Terri Collins, Chair of the House Education Policy Committee. Terri, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. Good to be here.
Well, you've got a big committee meeting tomorrow in the Policy Committee. You've got a bill up dealing with charter schools. There's another school calendar bill going, but I want to ask about this charter school bill because it essentially amends the charter school bill you originally passed back in 2015. I
Yes.
guess it was.
Yes.
But it's been years since. Y'all figured out some things that need to be updated. Walk me through what your bill does.
Okay, a lot of it, and first of all, let me say too, the changes are governance changes. The governor mentioned in her State of the State address that we wanted to address that. There are some local funding issues that I would like to address one day, but they are not a part of this legislation. This is governance changes. And the majority of them are actually changes that we brought forth as early as 2017. And because we knew right away, simple changes like we extend the commission term from 2 to 4 years. It really takes you the 4 years to learn how to do a good authorizing position.
This is for the charter school commission. That has the authority to authorize.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The state board has asked repeatedly. They didn't want to be a part of the process. I mean, they probably don't unanimously agree on that, but they've waited to make their complete the nominations for the charter commission. They just have not really wanted to participate. So it takes them out of the process, and it makes those that, like the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker, pro tem, the ones that appoint for most of our boards and commissions, they then become the appointers, and they appoint the charter commissioners.
And I know it also has something to do with the funding that follows conversion charter schools. We're actually seeing this here in Montgomery, and you may see it in other parts of the state where existing schools within existing systems become these conversion schools, and it's really maybe the model that's going to catch on, but local dollars are really going to be a part of that.
Well, local dollars, but it's also state and federal.
Okay.
So it's just making sure that the students, the same students that were in the same buildings, in the same system, are getting the same amount of money that they were getting before. And it's just to ensure that. And so that's all it is. And I really do hope that we have that. I will say that I think when we spoke earlier this year before session, I had about 3 different foundations reach out to me, education foundations, wanting to better understand conversion charters. I think they are a tool that we could use to make a difference. And if you take the 3 that we have right now, which are in Montgomery, as an example, they're doing an amazing job. But we also want to make sure that those students are getting their per share of funding that they were getting before.
Yeah, and there has been talk here in Montgomery about, are they getting all those funds? Are they actually following? And so this is a law just intended to say, look, you have to do this. This is a mandate. You can't scrimp from any of these conversion charters. Well, moving on to the other bill. This has to do with education, the calendar.
Modifying, yes.
Modifying the calendar. Comes from State Representative Garrett, who's your kind of cohort on the budget side. Walk me through some of these issues.
Okay. I came back from some of the conferences when we were seeing this last summer, and we were seeing systems that were making some really great student achievement gains. And some of them were modifying some of their calendars to add some extra days or to do it differently. We have one school in Mobile County system that actually they go year round. So every month they get like 1 week out of school. Every summer they still get 6 weeks out, but you don't get the whole time limit out. But their achievement has increased, their teacher retention has improved. It's really working for them. So this bill doesn't mandate anything. It just simply says to school systems, if you're really wanting to improve student achievement, giving the students more access to learning opportunities is one of the ways to do it. And if you come up with a plan and a budget of what you want to accomplish, how you want to do that, what your budget looks like, then we would have some grant money set aside to help you fund that, and you would have the option to add up to 30 more days to the school year.
Well, that's really interesting because over the years we've heard a couple of things. Looking at other countries that go to school longer, period. Other schools that don't have that summer break, and so that learning loss that we all know happens over summer. So I'm curious if you've heard from systems that may want to emulate something like that. because I can see it on the learning loss side. I can also see it from a parent standpoint, something more consistent than a 3-month summer break.
I think so. I think it would help parents potentially in the summertime, but I also think the reason that we're ready, that we might could see some things now, is that all school systems, to comply with Literacy and Numeracy Act, they are enhancing their after-school learning programs. They've got a lot more quality in those programs. They're enhancing their summer programs. They're having more students there. So we have a way now already in place of quality programming that schools could potentially use, so that if parents are working and they can't have their child come home one extra week or something like that, they could have a school opportunity through that extended learning, that they could go to school and they could be there. If they were opting out different days, if they're adding days to it, it would really just help parents know exactly what that schedule is and what it's going to look like.
Right. Well, while I've got you, there's also the school choice bill upstairs in the Senate, the Price Act.
Yes.
It's in the Senate Policy Committee. You've talked about accountability maybe being one of the sticking points on that, with even folks that are for choice still want to see more accountability provisions and something like that. Is that an accurate way to put it?
I think that's very accurate, Todd. That's exactly it. And I've worked with a lot of people that have been working on that bill, and they've included a lot of the changes that I've talked to them about, and I appreciate every single one of those. But they've not wanted to add the accountability piece of it. And I understand that their goal is just to have more parent choice. But to me, as a budget member on Education Ways and Means, and as a policy chairman for education policy, my goal with our state dollars is to improve student achievement. I would say almost everything I've worked on has had that goal. Let's improve our student achievement. And right now, there's nothing in that bill that gives transparency or accountability to those parents for where their children are doing and how they're doing and compare. Are they really making gains?
And accurate measures so that we know in the first place.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's what I've spoken to them about. Was really anxious for them to go ahead and start moving the bill and see what other people's concerns are about it. So I know they'll have a public hearing this week. I look forward to hearing how that goes and what comes out of that. I think until you actually sometimes, in order to get legislation passed, you're forced to actually make compromises on issues maybe you're not willing to until it hits the road, kind of. So maybe this is a good thing.
Well, yeah, and you've been around long enough to have been through some of those battles. Others are newer at this, and that's what it takes. We're out of time, and we've got lots of education issues we're going to continue to follow. But, Madam Chairman, thanks for coming on the show.
I'm glad to be here anytime. We are about to move into, I think, a lot of education issues. So glad to come back. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
Joining me next is State Senator Robert Stewart from Selma. Senator, thanks for coming on the show.
It's great to be back, Todd.
Well, yeah, you are back because we had you on really right after you'd been elected. Not very long at all service in the Senate. Now you've been here a few months. How's it been going?
It is, I wake up still every day honored to be able to serve my constituents in Dallas, Lowndes, Perry, Wilcox, Clark, Monroe, Butler, and Conecuh counties. Just wake up honored to be chosen. The excitement is still there, and just being able to do the people's work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's the largest district by area in the Senate, which is pretty significant. Let's talk about some issues. There's this bill going around having to do with gang violence. This is Senator Barfoot's bill. It was in Senate Judiciary. And look, he represents Montgomery. There are cities around where it's clear there are gang problems. But this bill didn't sail through. There were some problems that Democrats brought up in terms of, maybe the details, the definitions in the bills. What have the conversations been like, in the Senate and your caucus about this gang bill that's going through?
Well, I think it is alarming. It is some alarming legislation that would cause us to have deep introspection and to try to figure out how does this affect, because with every bill we try to figure out, well, how does this affect our communities? Will there be positive effects, or will there be adverse effects for our communities? And so with this legislation, I think that we need to continue to hear from a lot of our more public interest groups as well. I'm alarmed. I am young, and I am a part of a demographic as a young black male who has been profiled.
That's what they were talking about. The definitions could lead to profiling.
And so that is anytime we have an opportunity or something that might cause the risk for profiling, that we need to evaluate to make sure that we provide remedies that could help us all.
We had the game plan bills getting signed into law last week. You co-sponsored some of these. I know one of them, people are excited about its impact in rural Alabama, maybe getting some of these sites that could be industrial sites, maybe improved, identified, things like that. Now that these things are law, and I know you were involved in it, are you hopeful that there can be more opportunities? You represent a largely rural district.
Well, I'm grateful for Secretary Canfield with Commerce, and he's been to Selma, my hometown, a couple of times, and just his advocacy, as well as the governor's office advocacy for rural Alabama. A lot of times, we have a lot of success stories in Alabama with our larger cities, but we need economic development spread across the state, in every corner of this state. And so when we have our rural communities rise, especially when we talk about the Black Belt too, our whole state can rise because all of our fates are tied together.
Well, speaking of your district, I was going to ask you for an update on Selma. It's been, I don't even know how long since the tornadoes, but it kind of leaves the front page, right? Leaves kind of the news. Where are we with recovery efforts there in Selma?
Well, we still have people that are displaced, and so it's going to be a long yet persistent recovery. And Selma needs help. I will be, calling on and working for more state resources as well, for state to help with our recovery plan, our educational infrastructure as well. We've had over $150 million. There was a damage assessment done for over $150 million. And so this is massive and widespread damage, and it's going to take us a while to make a resurgence. I'm hopeful that we will. We still need our charitable organizations coming to Selma and volunteer. A hot meal goes a long way as well. Funds for disaster victims that are still, seeking recovery. We've had people have to move that left, like
out of town.
I spoke with a gentleman, and he's he was coming. He was a leader in the business community, and he had to move to a neighboring county because his house was just decimated. And so those have long-term effects on our community, and we really are going to need help to get back on track.
Well, I appreciate the update, and it's something we don't want to forget. Sometimes in the immediate aftermath of these things, all the focus is on, for a week, 2 weeks, something like that, and then later it leaves. And so we that's why we appreciate your update, and we'll continue covering it.
I'm grateful for the softball game on a lighter note.
That's right. All the proceeds went to Selma.
The Senate won. The House, they were a worthy competitor, though, however. But I'm grateful for the Black Belt. The proceeds will be going to the Black Belt Community Foundation, which is a very worthwhile charitable organization that has a great brand recognition. For several years, they've been making a difference in the lives of citizens in our region, and so it's a worthwhile cause. Charity is good, but charity does not replace a government that works. And so I'm grateful for the assistance we've received so far, but just want to send a reminder that Selma still will need help in the long haul.
We're out of time, but Senator, again, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for this opportunity.
We'll be right back.
Birmingham native David Wayne Perkins is a rock and R&B guitarist, singer, songwriter, and session musician. As a session musician at Muscle Shoals Sound Studios, Perkins backed several big-name musicians. He provided lead guitar overdubs on 3 tracks on Bob Marley and the Wailers' 1973 album, Catch a Fire, and was hired by the Rolling Stones to play lead guitar on 3 tracks on their 1976 album, Black and Blue.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching, or thanks for listening for those who are keeping up with the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow night at 10:30 with more coverage of the Alabama legislature right here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capitol Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.